So we can have a problem funding public goods, even when we elect a government to provide them. The government needs to devise a way of paying for public goods that will retain public support for those goods. And this becomes a problem when different people in the economy have different valuations of the good or service in question. And it's easy to see those situations. If you're a rich person living with a mansion with a lot of valuables and a lot of cars, well, police protection is bringing you a lot of value. But if you don't have anything, you're an anti-materialist living in a robe and on a cot in a straw hut, well, what do you got to lose? And you're not going to be targeted by thieves, and that protection doesn't help you. So this is a problem that we see in the economy quite a lot. And the textbook on pages 390, 391, 392 talks you through a case where these two citizens live on this lake, and their combined valuation of a pump is greater than the cost of the pump, and clearly this pump should be bought, but one makes much more than the other, and they have different valuations. So there's this coordination problem to agree together to buy the pump, and in a two-person example that's not that hard, but in a 1,000-person example you can imagine it get pretty tough to agree. But even once you agree, then there's this problem of paying for it, and they walk you through this the problem of an equal tax rule. If you divide up the cost of the pump evenly, the people that have relatively low valuations might not support that pump at all because their low valuations are lower than the equal share of the cost. So everybody loses there. Even the person that's willing to pay more for the pump because they don't get the pump in a democracy. So one way around this is a proportional tax. A head tax is what you call equal share, and that tends to be quite regressive. That is, poor people pay a much higher percentage of income than rich people. A proportional income tax is one where everybody pays the same proportion. Sometimes we hear that called a flat tax in the vernacular, and that can get around this problem of paying for the good. If everybody's paying in proportion to their income, and usually people with higher income have a higher willingness to pay, well then a proportional tax can collect more from those who value it higher, less from those who value it at a lower rate, and we can get the good paid for. And then even we even see situations where we have a progressive tax. In the U.S., the tax code is somewhat progressive. That means rich people, not just do they pay higher money because they make more money, but they pay a higher share of their income in taxes than do poor people, and this is a measure toward equity. The example in the textbook talks about a married couple. They're both in it together, and typically married couples feature situations where one party makes more than the other, but they make their consumption, they pool their income and make their consumption purchases jointly because you wouldn't restrict the higher valued person to consuming just the goods that the lower income person could pay half of or whatever. Anyways, it's sort of a clever analogy. I wanted to talk through this idea by means of another example, and that other example is a problem in the text. So two problems in the text. Let's do problems 6 and 7 in the end of the chapter problems. I think they're different numbers in the Connect homework, but they are there somewhere. So let's think of problem 6. I have them both together here, but let's just think about problem 6 in this screen. And here Jack and Jill value the security guard. Jack presumably makes less money. He values it $50 a month. Jill values it $150 a month. And then the wage is $120. So the first one, what is the most a guard can charge per month and still be assured of being hired by at least one of them? That's part, well, let me get a pen here. Part A, it's $150 per month is most that could be charged. And there, Jill would just hire the security guard herself, and Jack would get the benefits. He would free ride the guard could charge. And then Part B moves on to the case where there's a competitive market for security guards, and that pins wages for security guard at $120 a month. And what if Jack and Jill each paid 50% of the fee? The problem is that 120 divided by 2, that's each person's share, is 60. And we see that Jill would be all in favor. Her benefits of 150 are greater than the $60 share of the fee that she would pay, but Jack only values the security guard at 50, and he'd vote against it. And if you need both of them to support the plan, you need something more than just a straight 50-50 split. Well, then they won't have a guard. So plan won't be voted in. I'll just say the plan fails the vote. You know what I mean. And then would the hiring the guard increase surplus? Well, we see that their combined value of 50 plus 150 is 200. The guard only costs 120. So hiring guard increases surplus by 80. So this failure to agree is a damaging one to society. They'd be better off with the guard. Now let's move on to the harder problem 7. And here I've got problem 7 more or less on its own. And let's just think this through. Part A isn't too bad. Suggest a proportional tax. Well, we'll just use A for the proportional tax. We'll go A times 11,000 plus 1,000. That A is the proportion, has to equal 120. And then A times 12,000 has to equal 120. A equals 0.01 equals 1%. So a 1% proportional tax would succeed here. B is computationally quite a bit harder, although, well, you'll see how it works out. Here is, this would be the ultimate in fairness, right? Everybody gets the same net benefit, rich or poor. We're going to see that this problem works out to be the same numerical answer as A, but that doesn't need to be the case. So you should be able to do this whether the A and B methodology work out to be the same numbers or more typically they work out to be different numbers. Here, if the net benefits are going to be the same, Jill's net benefit 150 minus whatever she pays, we'll call that P sub Jill, has to equal 50 minus whatever price Jack pays. And here we have this issue. We have one equation and two unknowns. How do we solve for a unique solution? Well, we remember that P Jack plus P Jill has to equal 120. Now we have two equations, two unknowns, two straight lines actually, and we know they have a unique intersection. So now we can solve this. We can solve this by just solving for P Jill we can express that as 120 minus whatever share Jack pays, and now we can substitute this for P Jill over here and solve. So when we do that, we get 150 minus 120 plus, right, because we have a minus of this whole thing, and a minus of a minus ends up being plus P sub Jack. Review your algebra sign rules if necessary. I'm working with my 8th grader on that, so I know you've seen it before, but it's been a while since you were in 8th grade. Anyway, that still equals 50 minus whatever price Jack pays. And then we can consolidate terms. 2 times whatever price Jack pays, I'm adding P Jack to both sides. And now this 50 minus 120 is 30. I'll subtract 30 from both sides to get 2P Jack equals 20. The price Jack pays is 10. And then we know Jill pays the rest. So that's 110. And that's the same as we had back here. But that's just coincidence. Don't think these are going to solve to the same in the general case. I'll try to get a tap together for next class where they solve to different numbers. And then would Jill agree to the scheme? Yes, because her 150 is greater than 110. Would Jack agree? Yes, 50 is greater than his share, 10, so they'd both agree. But let's think about C. What's the practical problem? The practical problem is that in the real world, people don't have their valuations painted on their forehead, so we have to ask them. And when people know that their payment share depends on their answer, they tend to lowball it. Actually, on the other side of the coin, we talk about in environmental economics, when you ask people how much they value something and if they generally support the idea, and they know that their answer won't mean they're actually paying more, people highball their estimate. So what's the spotted owl worth to you? Oh, I'd pay $50 million if that species could be preserved. Oh, okay. Well, if you don't actually have to pay $50 million, and economists really consider that answer to be worthless. So, but either way, when you ask people their valuations, they either have this incentive to lowball when they know that their payment share is contingent on their answer, and then they have this incentive to exaggerate when they know that support for the project but not their payment share is riding on their answer. So in the real world, we don't know people's valuations, and then we have to make a guess. And generally, because rich people are able and willing to pay more for goods than poor people, well, property taxes are scaled to the value of the home, to pay for police forces and fire and schools, etc. And it's reasonable to suppose that rich people have a higher valuation of the good. So this is how we solve this problem of valuation. We make a guess. We use income as a proxy for willingness to pay, and in a lot of situations, that's a pretty good proxy. Of course, not all.